Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for the webinar this evening. I know that this is a webinar that so many people have been excited about, and guess what? I'm one of them. Jack, how you doing?
Yeah, good man. There's just a few people struggling to get on the Discord, so just trying to put out some fires. We're missing Chris today, but
Oh,
yeah, no, I just saw that. So we've got Amy in here, so the microgreen whiz that she is. So that's really cool. Always up for a bit of learning, Amy. I love that. Um, and it's just nice to see how different people talk about it as well, I think. But it's going to be cool. So it's like a beginner. We're going for the beginner course, but we shall get onto how to scale it as well, because I think that's the great thing about microgreens is that
yep.
it's easily scalable, really quickly, from growing for friends and family to potential businesses like chefs, cafes, markets, all that sort of good stuff.
I think as well that I think this is one of the really cool things about this is that this is something that people can do on so many different levels, and I think this is why people are so engaged with this process.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's like that seed to plate within 7 to 10 to 14 days for some crops, and I think that's what's exciting about it. It's the fact that I could buy a seed today and have a crop next week, and that's the power of growing food, because that's what gets you hooked when you start growing initially, and that pulls you in. If you get seeds when you're kids, like tomato seeds, and especially tomatoes that take months and months to grow, you're going to lose interest quite quickly. So having something like microgreens, you could just hold on. You can watch the daily growth. That's the exciting bit. And then you're going to have that crop. You're going to be eating it within 7 days. Then you're like, oh, what else can I grow? And it's just going to have that knock-on effect. Um,
Absolutely. Jack, just so you know, I'm just going to duck out just for a moment while I share the link with people on Discord.
yes, sure. With yeah, Amy, we've got a few more people that are like struggling to get on. So if we share the link, then hopefully more people could come on, join in, add questions. So I hope you're cool with that. And then once they come in, we'll do a little brief, and then we'll go straight into it.
I think that one of the things, Amy, I think you've been really enthusiastic about this webinar as well, and I think actually a lot of people have shared that enthusiasm as well.
I think Amy loves talking about it, same as me as well. And
Yeah,
that's why
well,
I loved our podcast, because we was just jarring on about it. Really good info. I think like I learned a lot from Amy as well, and I love her journey into it. And she's just continuously smashing it, paving the way with the Facebook group. And then I think this is a way that we're giving back with the food grow, like teaching people how to grow food at all scales, all levels. And that's what I love about it. What's going on?
so Jack, just so you know, I'm just sharing the webinar ID on Discord.
Sorry, Amy. A couple of amateurs here. It's amateur hour.
Yeah, Chris can't go away on holiday, can he?
No, he's the technical. We're the technophobes. We're the get the Jack's Patch badge in it. I was wearing your Herb Geek t-shirt yesterday, mate.
Right then, so I've now
Total amateurs.
I've shared the webinar ID. I mean, to be completely fair to us, Jack, I think
Roof's in. Great.
oh so oh so perhaps that's worked then.
I think so. Yeah, Roof was having a bit of issues, so
Yeah, I think the issue is that the Eventbrite email didn't go out, perhaps.
We'll have to edit this bit out, won't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Got to use my phone. Oh, that's not a laptop. That's not ideal. We'll give people another couple of minutes. See.
Yeah, Amy, thank you for your patience. I'm sorry
Yeah,
about
thank
the delay.
amateur hour. Audio. Once we get going, if you guys want to make a cup of tea or you've got one, then do so. We'll just wait another like 2 minutes and then we'll get started. Chris has actually said Eventbrite automatically send it, so they must have it. But if not, then let us know, and then that just helps us for the future.
I think, yeah,
Sarah.
yeah.
All right, Sarah's in.
This is the thing, Jack, as well, that because like Food Grower is genuinely like we are, a community. And so, it's, I mean, in what other organization would you be welcomed individually one by one as you join a webinar, right? Guys, when there's 100,000 people in our webinars, right, we'll remember your names. You know what I mean?
The thing is, mate, we've got to be technically sound to get that many people.
Well, I think on this occasion, yeah, I think
Are you on the beers? Oh,
yeah.
Have you got a beer?
I do actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's my first one though.
I'm on the waters.
Yeah, well, you're presenting today, Jack. So we've got quite a few more people coming in now. So
Okay,
yeah,
Joe's in as well.
and I
Okay,
think
okay.
yeah. So I tell you what, guys, we're going to pretend that didn't happen. So without any further ado, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Food Grower Academy webinar. And thank you so much for joining us. But this evening, especially, thank you for your patience as well. We know that quite a few people had issues logging in this evening. So thank you so much for your patience and for letting us know. And you haven't missed anything, guys, because, we've waited for you and we are now absolutely raring to go. Jack, how are you, mate?
I'm well, thank you. I'm excited to talk about this. This is something I do on a day-to-day basis on the farm. And as we're going into the shoulder season of autumn and winter, this is a perfect crop to keep your thirst for growing going. So microgreens and mushrooms are great, but today we're focusing on microgreens, these perfect little sprouts that we grow indoors and that we can grow in small. Amy in the chat as well, who's also got a microgreen business and is really, really successful as well. And it's just something that we need to be bringing a conversation to the table about microgreens. The health side of it is massive, and we're going to get into that. Let me pull up the screen. So we're going to pull up. So this is, if you guys are in the academy already, you've come across the ebook within the within the academy. So we're kind of going to go through this. And then I'm just going to explain on a broader terms about microgreens. We're going to be getting into the nitty gritty. But first and foremost, I actually want to see via the chat, I want to see who's a beginner and who is like looking to sell, like just to grow for themselves, or potentially to grow for friends and family, or potentially to scale this to a model where they can start selling to cafes, to chefs, to markets, and then potentially have it as a business. I know, Amy, I know your situation, and I'm very, I love your grow room, and I love that you've made a success out of it. But yeah, if you guys can just message on the chat, I want to get to know like who I'm talking to, just so I can know who to talk to in certain parts. So I'm going to go through my ebook and talk about how to start as a beginner at home using very low budget, using simple materials. And then I want to be potentially talk about how to scale up, what materials you might need to start a business or to actually start doing it properly.
Well, Jack,
So
Jack, shall I go first? Put my hand up and say, Andy from Birmingham is very much an enthusiastic amateur when it comes to microgreens. But I'm looking at this not from the point of view expanding it business wise, but very much just growing food for my family, really, because bills are going up, and this seems like a really cool, healthy way to provide some food for family.
yeah,
And we've got some other answers here as well. Ruth says she's a beginner, wants to grow for friends and family. Sarah, total beginner, hoping to grow for home. And Joe is beginner as well.
okay, perfect. So I'll try and keep it more on the beginner side, but I'll tap into how to potentially scale it as well, just because the excitement grows, no pun intended, as you're growing microgreens. So we're gonna move the chat out of the way and we're just going to jump into it. So now I know that you're beginners. Hopefully like verbally the ebook has helped, but I want to start on to my journey and then we'll get into why microgreens. So I started microgreens back in 2019, where I made a video about growing microgreens in, as you can see down here, in an Oatly carton. Tell a lie, that wasn't 2019, that was lockdown. And I grew a little bit before, but this was the real journey where it kicked off for me, because during lockdown, I was getting people to grow their own food using simple materials that you probably couldn't go out and buy at the time. But if you had like a half bag of compost and some spare seeds around, you could do something with your kids. And I thought of using something that was potential waste. So the zero waste version of doing this was to cut out a oat milk carton or an orange juice carton, fill it with soil, sprinkle some seeds, add some weight and give it a little spray, and voila, within 7 days, radish seeds were sprouted and ready for the plate. And what I love about that is the seed to plate of microgreens, the fact that you can do something at home, simple enough that kids can do it as well, but something you can enjoy, get into your diet as well. Don't see it as like cress just sprinkled on top of food. It adds flavor, but the nutrition value of microgreens is quite superior than its mature counterpart. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But this inspired me so much to add another dimension to the business. So what excited me about microgreens is the scalability from growing at home to starting a business. And Amy knows this full well because we've had a chat on our podcast, which is a definite worth a listen as well. Loads of good information on that. And it started just from growing seeds in cartons like this, all the way to having a 20-foot shipping container, which I built right before lockdown, which was a little bit gutting because I was hoping to sell to all my chefs and to enter the markets with a new product. But the beautiful thing was like setting this up has allowed me such another dimension to my business. Each tray, you can harvest a really healthy amount of microgreens. And what I love about microgreens, they come in very small portions, so about 30 to 50 grams at a time for the smaller crops. And you can make mixed salads as well. And when I say mix, you can add your peas, your broccoli with your radish, and you can have different colors. So you can have a mix of healthy microgreens together, or just super powerful ones on their own, like broccoli. I sell anything between, it could be like 10 to 25 pound per tray. So they could hold a lot of value, and you can actually make some good money off it if you really focus and know what you're doing. So I always say start with broccoli. I started with radish. I started with pea shoots, and I started with sunflower shoots as well. These four are like the breakaway microgreens to get involved in. So definitely write these down. Broccoli and radish are grown pretty much the same, and the same goes with sunflower and pea shoots. They're like two different categories. You make a few nuanced differences at the start of their growing journey, and we're going to go through that today. So yeah, I built wired a 20-foot shipping container where I used to be an electrician, so this really come in handy. Wired it, fitted it out, and made sure that I had good airflow, which is really, really important. And it's a nice insulated room, keeping the temperature very mild. So plants are like us, they prefer the favorable temperatures. So anything between like an early, like 18 to 23, 5 degrees is like optimal. And you want to keep the humidity down. So humidity needs to be like anywhere between 50 to 60%. Then you're in the ideal conditions to grow nice, healthy microgreens, and to make sure that you're not getting little problems like mold. But we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So yeah, that's pretty much my journey. Started growing, faffing about with them in 2019. Realized they were a really hot product for my chefs, my restaurants, and my markets. So I decided to scale up. And then I started teaching people how to do this online during lockdown. So you can see a little picture there of someone's Instagram. Give me a little shout out of them growing microgreens at home. So why microgreens? Microgreens, as I said before, are a crop that grows super fast. So 7 to 14 days. Within about 7 to 10 days is the optimal time. You're going to get that length on the microgreen. So it's going to be that little bit bigger, but it stays at a microgreen before it hits a third leaf. So a microgreen is the first 2 leaves of growth. When it goes to the third leaf of growth, and the third leaf looks like the plant. So for example, coriander has these 2 little leaves like this. And then on the third leaf is its coriander like lookalike, which is the serrated little leaf. So the microgreen stage is that little sprout before that. 7 to 14 days is a super quick seed to harvest. If you've got this sitting on your kitchen windowsill, this is real electric food. This is the seed to mouth in the quickest time possible. If you have these sitting on your windowsill or they're grown indoors within your house, you are cutting that food and you are ingesting that food, and that is considered electric food. So in the world of health and nutrition, electric food is the food where it stays almost like 100% nutrients if you consume it within a short period of time. Food notoriously loses its energy the longer it sits on a shelf or the longer it's got to travel to get to your plate. So eating this real food, the food that you've grown yourself, so you know it's not sprayed with any chemicals, and that you know the conditions it's grown in, makes it a really healthy crop and benefits your health so much. So I kind of mentioned earlier about broccoli. I think I've got a page on there, the health benefits of it, but broccoli is really, really high in sulforaphane. So incredible for your gut. And I actually have like 2 customers that buy bags of broccoli greens per week off me, and it's because they've both got breast cancer, and it's been one of those things that really is like incredible in it's better for the prevention, but anything to fight it will help a lot. I don't want to say any health advice on here. I'm just going to quote a few things that are out there, but I'm not going to say eat this and it's going to cure anything. But it's just a great prevention tool that you can grow at home, and that you can give yourself that little bit of power back towards your health. Yeah, it's considered one of the best superfoods on the planet. And it's getting a lot more recognition. There's a lot more white papers about the nutritional side of microgreens. It's getting really big in America and Canada, and it's actually coming over here more and more. You're going to start to see it more in the next 10 years. I did say that about 3 years ago, and it's been a slow process, but I do believe like you're going to definitely, when you go to a restaurant, you're seeing it more and more on plates, especially more towards the Michelin star. But you want to be getting them into smoothies at home and just flooding your, like, pretty much every meal. Want to be getting these little bits, sprinkles of nutrition on every plate. As I said before, you know exactly what food you're consuming if you're growing it. Minimal equipment needed. So if you're a beginner, congratulations. We're going to be showing you a really quick way on doing it. And if you've read this ebook, you know exactly what I mean, but we'll go through that. And then if we're going to scale it as well, we're going to talk about that also. Can be grown anywhere, no excuses. I get people sometimes talk to me on Instagram and they're saying like, yeah, it's a privilege to grow food, and it is a privilege with the space I have to grow vegetables outdoors. But with microgreens, you do not even need a sunny window. Microgreens are something that will grow under lights, like indoor lights. The optimal light really is something that has a daylight bulb. So a lot of LEDs you can change to a daylight bulb or a halogen. So you can write this down, but when you buy a lamp, for example, when you're growing microgreens a little bit beyond beginner, you actually look for 6,500 K lumens, and that just means it's a daylight bulb. If it's a daylight bulb, they'll grow. I'm not joking. You'll probably put it in the kitchen, under the kitchen lights. They're still going to grow. It's that 7 days growth. So they don't need to grow into a full plant and need full photosynthesis. They just need to see a little bit of light, grow to it, and then you've got healthy food. What I like about them as well, refining meals by adding lots of color and flavor. They're super, super potent. So for example, the broccoli taste of mustard, the radish tastes spicy, pea shoots taste like peas, and sunflower shoots have this incredibly Moorish taste. And we will touch on coriander because I want you guys, if you're in that 51% of the population that like coriander, listen up. If you're in that 49% that think it tastes like soap, I apologize. Right. Oh, love to see that, Amy, as well, that you've done it in the milk cartons as well. Right, let's move to the next slide. So equipment list. So this is basic if you're at home, but you want to be getting microgreen seed. So you can use packet seed if you're like really, really starting out, but it's a lot more cost efficient and also better if you get a sprouting seed. So microgreen sprouting seed is something that can be found at like somewhere where I like to buy it, and you get them in decent sized batches, is Premier Seeds Direct. Premier Seeds Direct. There's also another company called Moles. I think it's like Moles Seeds. And also when you get a little bit into it, there's also one that does a lot of different varieties called CN Seeds, but they have like a minimum payment that's quite high. So I would stick to Premier Seeds Direct. Make sure you go under the microgreen section or sprouting seed, and then just click away. Really, really good price, and you get a lot of seeds for your money as well.
Jack, is this a good point to add a bit of a warning to the presentation that actually when you go on the Premier Seeds Direct website, you might be tempted to buy lots and lots of different varieties?
I wonder what you was going to say then when you said warning. I was like, is the chat recording going to stop or something like that? I'm glad it was your own personal demons coming forth, making sure. Yeah, it is a dangerous website because everything is super cheap, and it's organic as well. There's like half and half, organic and non-organic. So always get the organic one, guys, if you can. But still super good price, and really recommend that website. and they deliver super fast as well. So a milk carton or seed trays with holes in the bottom. So a milk carton has that depth. It doesn't necessarily need holes in the bottom just because of that depth of soil. Those 7 days of growth, once you cut it, like, it's not going to need drainage just because you're going to be spraying the top of it. We're going to talk about that in a second, but a milk carton doesn't need holes drilled in the bottom. Just fill it with soil. You're going to get that crop, and then you can discard it and reuse it. You can upcycle it as well. It just needs fresh soil and new seeds. If you want to start getting trays, you can get small like plasticky trays. I would suggest our friend at Grow Local that we have a discount code for on the website, they have bigger microgreen trays, but you could potentially grow a couple of microgreens together, something like broccoli and radish that grows like at the same speed, just to maximize your tray. But with a tray, you want one with holes and one without, because the one without is going to be the water reservoir underneath. That's going to, like, where the water is going to sit, and the roots are just going to suck up that moisture. Just so it's just the best way of doing it, which I'll explain in a minute as well. But when you're sitting the trays, before you use the water reservoir, you actually sit the tray on top of the seeds, and you add weight. And then once the microgreens start pushing that weight up, you take that reservoir off, and then you put it at the bottom. I don't want to get too confusing because we're going to explain that in a minute. So yeah, if you guys are beginner, definitely with a milk cartons, super basic, super easy, shoestring budget, keeping it energy crisis and all that. We just got to keep looking after our pocket, and it's a great way to upcycle. Compost, I recommend using a multi-purpose compost that's got like a nice, that's nice and fine. If you go to a garden center, you'll see Sylvia Grow. They have a multi-purpose compost that's peat-free. The reason I use that is because the grade of the soil is super fine. And when you're flattening the soil, you don't want lumps and bumps from big bits of wood in there. That really disturbs it. And I'll touch on that in a second as well. But a nice fine grade soil is perfect. That's what you want. I've put coconut coir in there as well because you can grow it on coconut coir, but it's a little bit more expensive. I found for price and quality and what I like to use, Sylvia Grow multi-purpose. If you've got any questions, or if you want me to send you any pictures of what that looks like, yeah. Also, Amy Rick Grow So Greener are amazing too. Really good website for seeds. Sunny spot in a window, or as I said about a desk light or inside light, absolutely fine. That's what you want to be using, especially for the basic start. And then if you want to scale it, then you message us and we'll show you where to get the lights and where to get the racking system and all that jazz. A weighted object. This is a really interesting thing about microgreens that you don't do with normal plants. So literally, you will put a weighted object on top of your microgreens. And look, can you see here? See that brick on top of my seed tray? No joke, the seeds push that brick off off. All those little individual seeds have enough power to push that brick off. The reason we put weight on top of microgreens is if there's pressure on top, the microgreens they sprout their seed and they send the energy down into the compost. And when they do that, when the roots get a good anchor, sprouting seeds grow nice, straight and tall. So if they don't get a good anchor, they'll be all flimsy. But when seeds have a really good, strong root system and good anchor in the soil, they grow nice, straight and tall. And we have nice, straight microgreens. And that makes it easier to cut, easier to harvest. And that's better for us, but that's also better for the green. So you're going to get a nice, perfect little microgreen that's nice, straight and tall. And that's because we've put the pressure on to send those roots down. This is an equipment list that if you want to go a little bit step further and grow, I'm going to keep this very much for the beginners because you guys are here for that. But anything, if you want to further your knowledge, honestly, like, you message us in the group and we'll tell you where to buy it. I've got all the links, and all, I mean, I do it daily. So you message me and I'll sort you out. So health benefits as well, as I suggested, there's tons of nutrients, but there's a really famous study that says microgreens are 4 to 40 times more nutritious than a mature counterpart. So a whole head of broccoli is not as nutritious as a handful of microgreens. They are 4 to 40 times more nutritious, because if you think about that handful of broccoli is like an allotment full of broccoli, and you're eating that, you're getting all those concentrated minerals and vitamins in those little sprouts, and that's just flooding your system with good nutrition. And that's why those ladies who, bless them, have breast cancer, that's why they need them. They need the extra nutrition getting in their body in a micro version. They're not needing to eat all this different food. They're just adding it to their diet in a very micro way to have maximum results. So you can see here, it's loaded with like phytonutrients, antioxidants, beta carotene. Each individual microgreen has different minerals depending on what plant it is. But for like elite health and fitness and nutrition, broccoli seems to come out on top. It has a lot of sulforaphane in, which I said earlier, incredible for your gut. My sister has Crohn's, and it's really good for like anything to do with gut health, like IBS. Anyone in your family like that, if you can grow that for them, it's going to help them a lot. I mean, my sister now, unfortunately, had a major operation, and she's had to have her intestine taken out. But it's something that, like, I've been fighting for the longest time, that this needs to get into people's diets, and it's something that we can all do at home in 7 to 10 days to get, that could potentially save like family members a lot of trouble, and also to save ourselves, because gut issues are rife at the minute. And also health, just really easy way to just improve our health. So it's seen as a prebiotic as well. It's just good for the gut bacteria. And as you can see, look at the minerals and vitamins that it shows there. So yeah, look at this. When homegrown, they're fresh. As soon as any plant is harvested, it starts to decompose, losing its nutrients and health benefits. For example, spinach loses 90% of its vitamin C within 24 hours of harvesting, unless frozen. But this is what I mean about eating our own food and going from that seed to plate so quickly. So going from the allotment back to our house to eat that food. I'll give you a pretty crazy one. Corn is 20 minutes before it's like almost nutritionally dead. So that's why that still blows my mind. When you harvest lettuce, it should have that milkiness on it, and that should be bitter, and that is where all the goodness is. So I try and eat food at the farm. It's really important that when we cook our food or bring it home, we eat it straight away. And with microgreens, we can do this almost instantaneously. So we can really improve our own health and also people around us. So I'm going to stop talking as quick and as fast and as crazy as possible, but I'm really passionate about this subject, and there's a lot to cover as well. So step one is upcycling your carton. So as I said before, like, you can use a shallow thing with holes in it, and then put something without holes in it to hold the water. And you want to, especially with the Oatly cartons, just wash them out. Use a sharp knife. Be sensible, or use scissors. Cut out the top, so just take the lid off the top. Then we want to fill it with that fine compost. And this is important to spread it evenly. You can see in step 3 down here, I pressed down the compost so it's compact. So what by compacting that soil, it makes those roots anchor better. If it's in loose soil, again, we're going to get loose plants. So a nice compaction, I get my shoulders over and I tamp it down. Even with something in like an Oatly carton, this is like how I do it commercially with the bigger trays from Grow Local. But I tamp down, that I've made like a little wooden frame, but you could do it with a block of wood. And you want to tamp that soil down nice and tight. and you want to make sure that there's no divots within the soil. And this is why it's important to use really high quality compost, nice and fine with no chunks of wood, so no divots. Because if the seeds start to congregate in a hole that the divot has made, this is where we're going to have issues of mold. So seeds take a lot of energy and create heat when they germinate. You mix that with spraying water on top, you've created humid conditions, i.e. you're creating a perfect conditions for mold. So if those seeds are spread nice and even across that tray and they're not touching too much, or like they're slightly spread out, then it gives that tiny bit of airflow in between, and they're not congregated to then energy from the heat from the energy with that water potential of mold. So it's nice, and this is a really important stage. So compact that soil, get nice and flat, use that good soil, use that good quality soil as well. So step 4 is scatter a dense sprinkle of seeds over the soil. It's really difficult to say this, but you sprinkle densely but almost sporadically, so that they're like touching but not overlapping. So a nice dense sprinkle is going to give you a nice carpet of microgreens, and this is just a perfect way. I see a lot of people is they don't spread it enough, and then you're going to not get really great bountiful harvest. As you're cutting it, you want to be grabbing it and like it rips up like a little carpet of greens. So don't be afraid and just sprinkle those seeds nice and dense, but make sure they're just not overlapping, so they're almost touching. So I always say, like, spread them like the dense stars in the Milky Way, where you can see the individual stars, but nice and dense, but you can still see some soil. So yeah, that's the best for the best results. In a beginner version, spray the soil. So you want to spray it really dense, kind of vigorously at first. So make sure that you seed and then spray, but put it on a mist setting, so you don't spray and then push the seeds out the box, or push them where they're like going to congregate. A nice mist on top. I mean, when I start to grow them commercially, I actually use a spray gun with a mist setting, and I get them nice and soaked, because ideally, if you get them nice and soaked, once you put the weight on, you actually don't need to spray them again for a couple of days. If that temperature is right and the humidity is right, just give them a nice good soak in, and then we're going to cover them up. If it's looking a little bit dry, so you just check on them every day, give them a little spray again, but make sure, I always say, spray once really, really well and then leave them. Right, so you can see in step number 6, it looks mental, but there is a brick on top of your microgreens. So there's a brick on top of those seeds. As I said before, if you're going to do it in shallow seed trays, you'll put the water reservoir on top, like I showed there. So you put your water reservoir on top with your brick on it. But in this smaller way in the cartons, just put that brick or a piece of wood straight on top. No joke, my seeds are so robust that if you think about it, when seeds fall into tarmac, they actually break tarmac. When a plant grows, it's got the ability to break through tarmac. It's got incredible strength. So just see your seeds as not these little weaklings. They are strong. And especially when they're together, they'll like push wood off. I've had roof tiles on before I started using bricks, because they'd actually, once stacked, they push the roof tiles off, which used to impress me more than anything. So this is an important stage.
Jack, I think, can we just take a moment here just to appreciate how cool that is? That actually, we're all in this group, we're all in Food Grower Academy for different reasons. We're all come to this webinar for different reasons. But maybe one of the things we all have in common is that we're all in awe of the power of growing and the power of nature. And, you've just explained how these tiny little plants have got such really, really positive kind of nutritional attributes, can lift a brick.
Yeah,
how cool is that?
I mean, once you start stacking them as well, like me and Amy will know, once you start stacking trays upon trays. So if you're running out of room, you actually stack one tray on top of the other, then one, and you can have like a stack of 4 or 5 with the bricks on top. And then especially like pea shoots and sunflower shoots that are a little bit bigger, I've gone in my grow room and it's topped over because the seeds have gone like that and they've pushed them off.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just like mad all the time. It's
So
really,
just
really impressive.
so just to be clear, those seeds have grown so strongly that they've tipped over all of the trays that are on top.
Yes, so like because they've all started to grow, and what I'm saying about that anchor of like if you take that pressure downwards, the seeds are going to send all the energy into the roots. So if they've got
Yeah.
nice strong roots, they're going to be like bang, and they're going to push it up. But this is an important stage. Like I don't like to skip over this because I think it's so cool. If the pressure going downwards creates that pressure going upwards. And it's made me even think in the garden before, if I've ever had weaker plants, like, you know what, next time I'm going to, like, before I prick them out and sow them densely together, is put a little bit of weight on, because you're going to get a stronger plant. So this is something to think about when taking into the garden. When I sow my peas in my garden, I actually put a scaffold board on top of them where I've like sowed them in a line, and I'll let them germinate and kind of push on that scaffold board a little bit. I'm not saying they're going to throw them off because you don't sow them as densely, but that extra pressure gives them that kind of strong start in life, that when you take that off, it's like, right, now it's go time. I can grow up nice and strong because I've got a good root system. So it's something to think about in the garden as well as microgreens. That's something that I've kind of took with me from the indoor growing to the outdoor growing. And it's something that I find super interesting. Yeah, like Amy knows, she stacks them all the time. So that's cool. Get a little bit of backup there on the pushing of the microgreens. So, my little bar, if that will move. Yeah, so that's just saying that if they're getting a little bit dry, I'll miss the trays. But if you soak them once after day 3 or 4, if you start seeing them all germinate across the tray, that is a picture from Canva. So I didn't have a better picture of like step 7. But like once you start seeing them all germinate, like you just know there's even germination. If there's dry patches, spray them obviously, but if you soak the whole tray and it's all nice, flat and even, you should get that consistency across the tray, which is really, really important. Once the seeds start to push up the tray, the sprouts at each height of like one centimeter, that's when I take the weight off, because you start to see the edge of the ones that catch the light start to go green, because they're going to start to fight for the light. So they're going to move around whatever's weighting them. So the perimeter is always green, like in that picture, and the middle ones are got less photosynthesis, so they're always yellow. But once you start seeing that little bit of growth, I always say, like, get to like a centimeter. Anything before that, then there's always going to be seeds that have like not quite made their roots. Once you start seeing that little bit of push of growth, that's when you take the weight off, and that's when you want the energy started to direct towards the light. And this is when they're going to start going from yellow to green. So they're going to start filling with the chlorophyll. So step 9, after a few days of like going into the light and then making sure that the water is always topped up. So if we're growing them in Oatly cartons, we're going to spray them daily. If we're got a seed tray, you just want to be filling up that seed tray, making sure water is like pretty much covering the bottom. Not too much, because you can soak the roots and make them go moldy, but just like a little bit of water that makes sure that the water is just at the whole of the surface of the reservoir, and that the roots are sucking them up. If they're really, really thirsty, you could go back 10 minutes later and they'll literally soak it all up. But that's what's the great thing. There's going to be a lot of roots, and a lot of plants are going to be fighting for that moisture. And you can just test it by touching the edge. And if it's moist, leave it. If it's dry, fill it up. But this is going to be over a few days. So you're going to see rapid growth. Every time you go to where your microgreens are, you're going to see a change in them. And that's what makes it exciting. And then by like step 7, the microgreen should look like a dense carpet of greens. It as well, like this is like the good seed, good compost. Make sure there's always good airflow. Don't put them in a damp room. Make sure there's somewhere airy. that they're getting like fresh air constantly, and that potentially, like for in the grow room, you actually put them next to a fan, or like within fans, so that they're getting fresh air all the time, just so that it, as I said, as the seeds germinate, you can put your finger in the middle and it's always going to be warmer where the seeds are than it is outside. So it's nice to get that good airflow, make them comfortable. They're like, plants are like us, they just want to be happy and healthy. And you give them those conditions and they'll thrive. If you have any spots of mold, it's just good to know for next time. You always see issues, or if you ever see issues, you know that the next time you just troubleshoot it. You might be like, oh, I used too much water, there wasn't enough airflow, there might have been a divot and I noticed it, but I still sowed it anyway. The great thing about microgreens is that if you cock it up a little bit, 7 days time, you've learned something. And that's the beauty of this crop. You haven't got to wait a season, you just wait a week. And this is how you're going to develop as a grower. And if you start with this, you're going to be it's just going to give you the basics to grow a garden. And that's what I love about it, because you're going to be growing a micro garden at home. And then when you get to the macro garden, you're going to have all this basic knowledge. So 7 to 10 days for the baby crops. We're just talking about broccolis and radishes and cabbage and rocket and for all that for now. But these 7 to 10 days, you want to start getting your knife and scissors, and you want to start harvesting just above the seed level. So you want to grab your microgreens, harvest at the base, sprinkle to any plate, soup, salad, sandwich, and enjoy the micros. You haven't got to wash them necessarily, because that will just make them flimsy. But you know, if you've grown them in a healthy environment, you can eat them straight away. The beauty of this is that you're growing broccoli and radish microgreens, but this also covers cabbage, kohlrabi, kale, rocket, lettuce, pak choy. All of these grow quite similar, but you want to be starting with the radish and broccoli just to get started. I think it's important to smash 2 to 4, feel comfortable, know that you're a good grower at growing those 4 crops, and then you move on to the next ones. I mean, this is the same thing all growers do. We get too excited, we grow a big diverse, we have some losses and we blame ourselves. But if we just concentrate on a few things at first, and then we nail that, then we move on to the next, to the next, to the next. And it just makes us better growers. This is why I only grow oyster mushrooms at the minute, is I want to be known as like the best oyster mushroom grower in my area. And at the minute, I'm trying to be the best microgreen grower in my area. So I stick to what I know, become good at them, become niche at them, and then I'll move on to anything interesting as it goes on. Same with my chefs. They know what they're getting each week. If they ask for anything crazy, I just say, I'll do it in a small batch, but I'm learning. But if you want the menu of what I've got, this is what I have. If you start to divert, you're not going to go to a restaurant and then ordering something off the menu. So it's always nice to know what you're giving people. So step 11 is composting. This is a beautiful thing about microgreens. At home in the Oatly cartons, you will get a second crop if you look after it. So there'll always be seeds that haven't germinated in time, so you can get a little second crop if you do it at home. Commercially, we can't do that because of the potential of mold in bigger trays. So we compost. So I composting at home. So if you've got a worm farm or you've got a composting bay, amazing. You're adding such highly nutritious crops to that composting bay. You're adding a lot of roots. So it's a lot of food for microbes and worms. So you're going to be generating a lot of great compost as well. And then also, if you don't have this facility at home, anyone would take these with a composting bay, but also animal sanctuaries. I go to animal sanctuaries with these live trays. So like sometimes there'll always be some residue, and horses love them. If you've got some pets, guinea pigs, rabbits, they'll eat them as well. Chickens, they absolutely love them. And you're giving them a highly nutritious food and you've not spent any more money. And that's what I love about them. The waste management of microgreens is great. Although you are getting like 1 or 2 crops and then you're chucking it away, you're never really chucking it away if you're composting it. You're keeping that closed loop system of creating soil again, and that soil can go into the garden and feed your plants. So that's what I like about the whole microgreen setup as well. So guys, this is that those little steps there were for broccoli and radish, and as I showed here, kohlrabi, rocket, kale, cabbage. These can be applied to those crops as well in exactly the same stages, and you can grow them happily. So we're going to grow into pea shoots and sunflower shoots. These are really exciting crops, but there's a slight nuance at the start of growing these crops that make them a little bit different. By the way, guys, has anyone got any questions in the chat? If you want to ask before I move on, feel free. Can you hear me out, Andy?
Yeah, sorry, mate. Your sound just dropped out there, but you're back now.
Okay, cool. So if anyone's got a question in the chat, please feel free. I want to answer in real time as well, because if there's something I've missed, it's really good to like help you guys cover it straight away. So if you've got any questions or things I've said that you might not quite understand, please feel free. We're here to answer those as well.
Jack, just while people are thinking of potential questions, if it's all right with you, I've just got a quick question regarding what you just said. When it comes to taking the weight off, so they've been growing away, they're happy, you're checking on them each day. Is there a clear-cut way that you would go, yes, they're ready for the cover to come off?
Yeah. So it's nice to see that all that growth across the tray or across the Oatly carton. And what I say is, like, if you put like a block of wood on top or something like that, you're getting like that little bit of a push. So it's almost like there's going to start to bush out the side a little bit, or like I say, like a centimeter of growth. I mean, a brick is a little bit weighty for these, so maybe like a roof tile or a block of wood. But that, like, on top, if you get that little bit of a push and they're all germinated and they're all starting to show stem with some leaves on, that's when you take it off. Sometimes you can take it off too late and they'll go quite leggy and they'll just grow a little bit like this. But by day, I'm going to go back. It's normally by day 4. Day 4 or 5 is like optimal time.
Okay.
They do grow slower in the cold. So when I say about temperatures as well, that's kind of important, because if they're growing in like an optimal temperature, like that 18, 25 degrees, then they're going to grow like at a really decent rate. But if they're going to grow in like 10 degrees, you're going to get slow, can turn to 2 weeks quite quickly. So yeah, just grow them where they're going to be happy. So on a kitchen counter or somewhere that just has an optimal temperature.
Thanks, mate. That's really useful, because just from my own personal experience, and I know that everybody we've got in here this evening, has said that they're at beginner stage. And to be honest with you, I would probably put myself at that kind of enthusiastic amateur stage. Like, I'm doing growing every day. And yet with microgreens, that's the one thing that I'm very, I find quite difficult to judge, the stage to which you go, right, that's it. Away you go, start growing.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, man. It's just, these are like basic techniques that just give you that little bit of confidence. That's all I want, is a little bit of confidence going into it, not thinking, oh, what do I do here? Is this right? But like that right soil, why we tamp it, the densely sprinkle of seeds, to get this optimal great. Right, I've grown microgreens and I've grown them well. This is what I like to teach people.
And I think what's hitting me as well, Jack, and I'm sorry, because I know I really want to know about the pea shoots as well. That's another one I'm really into. But
God, I've gone on for an hour. Geez.
What's really struck me as already is the importance of that stage.
Yeah,
You know, the
exactly.
stage where you actually lay the foundation. So thank you so much on being on behalf of everyone so far. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's it. And really, we're not going to go loads into this next bit. It's just this nuanced start bit that we'll cover, and then we'll like the rest is exactly the same. So pea shoots and sunflower shoots, a different texture, a different size, a different weight. So if you are like wanting to grow more fuller food, these are great. Or you mix the pea shoots in like a little salad mix with broccoli and radish that have different colors and different sizes. These are like going to give you that crunch. So in a nice soup, or just added to a sandwich, they're going to give you that nice crunch, super moreish, got that extra like protein to them as well, which is great. But the real way to do this is by when you get your seeds 24 hours before, or 12 to 24 hours before, you want to be hydrating the seeds. So you actually, I feel a sneeze coming. You want to be
Keeping us on the edge of our seats,
yeah,
mate.
I know it's going to come like when I don't expect it. So the seeds you want to be hydrating for 12 to 24 hours before. So I just chuck the seeds in a bucket. So the best thing to do sometimes, I do this very much by eye, but you can actually sprinkle some seeds on your tray before you do this, and then you want to chuck them in a bucket. So you're like, oh, that's the amount I need. Or if you overgrow or overdo it, you can just I do this by eye. It's a bit bad, really. I'll give you some weights to how to do this, but I like sprinkling it out on some soil first, and then I like scrape them back off and put them in the bucket, and then you know how much you're going to need. But a seed will double in size when you hydrate it for the peas, for sure. So this is great for the garden. If you want to germinate your peas quicker, you actually hydrate for 12 to 24 hours before, submerged in water, and that pea will go from like that to like that. And when you sprinkle them on, they already started their germination process. This means you do not need to water your seeds once you've drained the bucket and you've spread them onto your tray, because that seed has then hydrated itself in those 12 to 24 hours to then use that water to germinate the seed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and actually, that's a really good point to touch on regarding, actually soaking peas before, even if you're not doing microgreens. That's
Yeah.
something that's really, really helped me last year.
Yeah, it's a really great tip. I really love that as well. So yeah, sunflower shoots and pea shoots. And I didn't know you could even eat sunflower shoots before I started eating microgreens. It's like eating the sunshine, because you know that it's going to get to this big, beautiful flower. But the fact that sunflowers are well edible, like the petals, the seeds, and then the greens. And the greens are so delicious. They're like super moreish. Great for kids. Like you could give a bag of microgreens to kids, or when I go to restaurants, sometimes I'll grow them and it's like a snack before the before the main meal starter comes out. It's like a little snack. Really, really cool. But yeah, really moreish, really good for you. So you want to soak them for 12 to 24 hours before. We want to drain them out. Then we want to sprinkle them. And then we just do the exact same steps that we've done before. So we want to cut our Oatly carton. We want to fill with compost. We want to spread our seeds out. So look, this is a perfect example of peas spread out on your soil. And then we want to add that weight. And adding the weight for peas and sunflowers is like more paramount than the other ones, because again, it's a bigger seed, so it can take a lot more of tough love. And then when you get that anchor in the soil, they're going to push that off. And trust me, this is when you start to see the magic happen of pushing the weight off. And as I said before, like we're going to spray them really, really vigorously. We're not going to spray them. There's going to be enough water in that seed. And then each day you want to check if it needs a spray, great. If not, absolutely fine. You're going to start to see that germination after a little bit longer. It might be like 4 to 6 days or 7 days. And you want to start to see that in like kind of like that centimeter again. You want to see like maybe a centimeter or two of push before you take that brick off, or that roof tile, or that or that bit of wood off your microgreens. So the length of time is going to be 2 weeks from start to finish. So these take a week longer than the previous microgreens, but these grow to a decent size and are a little bit of a different type of plant. So as I said, they're like 1 to 2 centimeters tall. Remove the cover and weight. Put the carton into a sunny window or under an LED or fluorescent light with that. That's totally wrong there. That's meant to say 6,500 K lumens. Yeah, and then you just harvest at the base as normal. The only thing is with sunflower shoots is sometimes the seed sticks to the leaf. You just remove that because that's unedible, and then just enjoy. So as is shown there, look, can you see the sunflower seed still on that leaf? You would actually take that off and then they're going to look like that. So you want to catch them at 2 leaves again. If it goes to the 3rd leaf, the sunflower shoot's 3rd leaf is a little bit hairy. So that starts to taste a little bit weirder. But those first 2 shoots are super moist and super delicious. And as I show there, iron and protein up to 30%, as well as all those incredible vitamins and minerals. So pretty much, guys, that's your first 4 beginner crops of microgreens. I will be doing an intermediate version of this. As you guys said, you're beginners. This is a really, really basic, get you off the ground to feel comfortable with growing your own microgreens. And please, if you have any questions, please jump into the chat box. And yeah, I'm ready to answer them. So, Andy, what I'd like to know what you've learned over this quick webinar.
Well, first of all, on behalf of everybody that's watching this live and everybody that's going to watch it back, thank you so much. For what you've done this evening, Jack. Just going to read out a quick message there. Joe says this has been brilliant. Thank you, Jack. And I'd just like to echo that because, I mean, Joe, is this the right time to be finding out how to grow food that's very nutritious at home, cheaply? Cometh the hour, cometh the right crop. So thank you so much for that. That little saying there. I'm going to copyright that, I think. But you asked me what I've learned. Well, I'd just like to share something with with everybody that's watching this live, and everybody that's going to be watching this back. That actually, a relative of mine, Jack knows who I'm talking about. Suffers with a condition very similar to Crohn's disease, and actually gut health is very, very important. And ultimately there are medicinal solutions, but those solutions are very heavy-handed. They're very chemical heavy.
Yeah.
Side effects, and I know you understand that, Jack. So I'm a bit emotional because, honestly, the one thing this has inspired me to do is I'm going to go on to Premier Seeds Direct, and I should say other seed suppliers are available. We're not sponsored by them, even though me and Jack do live on their website. And I'm going to get some sprouting broccoli, and I'm going to try growing some microgreens for this relative of mine that's very unwell at the moment. So thank you for sharing that, Jack, because I think honestly, I'm a big advocate of the fact that growing, it has multiple benefits, so everybody can see the vitamins that are actually on the screen right now. But also it's the joy of watching it grow, isn't it? It's something that you can control. It's something that you can take a lot of satisfaction from. So thank you so very much for that. Guys, we are here for as long as you want us to be, basically. If anybody's got any questions, please just drop them into the chat box or the Q&A box, and I will read them to Jack. Honestly, any questions at all, please drop them in there. I have got a few more questions, Jack, if that's all right with you.
Mate, please. I feel sometimes I'm a little bit passionate, so I just keep talking. I try and make it as clear and concise as possible, but my brain just goes off tangents a little bit, or I might be blabbering a bit, but just trying to get it across. It's hard because if I was in my grow room, it's quite easy course content. As well as doing these webinars, we're going to be we're developing courses around it, so it's like very visual and learning in real time as well. But this gets people growing now. Like, so our garden's finished. Something, as I said, as I've stressed loads and loads, within 7 days you can have your first crop. And this is where the Discord is beautiful. So as a community, we could probably do a challenge to be like, right, we all buy our seeds, we all seed on the 1st of November, and then
Yep.
we show our day-to-day progress. And I think that'd be really cool. I'm actually going to do that. I just thought of that.
Let's do that, Jack.
We'll set
Yeah.
a challenge, because the seeds are super cheap. And I know we're all like tight on our pockets at the minute, like very tight because of what's going on in the world. But it'd be really cool to grow together and just see our progress, and to troubleshoot in real time, to be like, oh, maybe Andy, you didn't seed it as densely as you could have, but now you know for next time. And then the next
Yep.
one, you show me a picture and you're like, boom, voila, done. And that's the important thing, is like, these are very easy to do. You can do it with your kids. And that's what I want to stress. It's like, it's so simple, super, super simple. There are variations. Yes, you can get mold. This can happen, that can happen. But really, as a collective, it's just repetition with this. And once you like repeat it, you find that sweet spot, and then it becomes so easy. You don't even think about it. You're like, la, 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 la. Put that there. That's going to do well because it's got a bit of airflow. I'm using this compost because this compost works. I'll remember to tamp it to get that nice structure. And 9 times out of 10, I don't have any issues. Sometimes, or like, I tamped it, but maybe some seeds fell into that corner. It'll be fine. And then it soon tells you if it's not fine. But yeah, that's that repetition of doing this is brilliant. And this is where we can all really look forward to it. It seems so easy to have a go. Understanding experience will help. We'll be having a go. Yeah, Sarah, Joe, like, honestly, it's simple. But what we'll do is we'll get on the group, on the Discord. I'll send a link for the seeds. We'll all get a carton. So I'll find an Oatly carton that I've nearly finished. I'll show you, like on the book, it shows you how to cut it. I'll go to the garden center, or I'll send a link for the exact soil I mean as well, because I've wrote that down. And then just using like a block of wood to tamp it in, it would be perfect. But then that block of wood could then be the weight. Or I always want to say use a book, but a book will get wet and then you ruin the book. But so I'm just trying to think of stuff that's like that size.
Well, Jack, I think this challenge is happening because from the sound of it, I think Joe's ready to go. You know, it's
we need a challenge.
Yes to the challenge. And Sarah says, really interesting. It seems so easy to have a go. Understand experience will help. We'll be having a go. So,
challenge on.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to, just suggest that maybe, the second week of November, perhaps, we could all sort of kickstart it once paydays happened, and that's really cool. Jack, do you mind? I should say, by the way, Joe, Ruth, Sarah, if any of you've got any questions at all, please just let us know. Can I fire a couple of questions back at you really quickly, Jack?
Absolutely.
The first one, it's quite specific, really. Because I know the big challenge I think I can see me facing, being really honest with you, is the temperature.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience, using grow tents?
Yeah, so grow tents, I think as long as you can get airflow into that tent, that's the important thing. So I always say, like, a kitchen counter window is ideal because, like, energy from people being in that room or whatever. Grow tents are great, but just make sure you get airflow in. Just make sure it's not humid in there. Like, if you're opening it up and there's like loads of condensation on the windows of it or something like that, then you're going to just hit a few more issues. We just want to, like, just think in our mind, no humid, like, as it needs to be as calm as possible, almost like this room temperature, like no real humidity. Because even my grow room sometimes gets really wet if I've got like loads of microgreens in there, and I actually have to have a dehumidifier in there.
Yep.
Because I just got to take the moisture out of the air. But that, like, just think of like room temperature and just still, and then like if there's a little bit of airflow, like you're not going to have a fan on in bloody November, but just maybe some airflow of just it being like just yeah, do you know what I mean, just like a normal
Yeah.
house room. If there's a draft, fine. As long as it doesn't get like too fluctuation in temperatures.
Because I think this is something that actually, I advise people on, with general growing, just with the herbs that we produce, that actually, I think all too often, growing is the beautiful balance between moisture, temperature, and light. That's sort of like the holy trinity of growth, isn't it? And one thing that, the last 12 years of growing, in polytunnels, unheated polytunnels, has taught me is very much that actually it's more important to reduce the humidity, even if that means lowering the temperature. So, taking the doors off the polytunnels just in case I forget to open them in the
Yes,
morning.
yeah.
And, even if the herbs are a little bit colder, they're all hardy, but, even if the herbs grow a little bit more slowly, it's not worth trying to sort of cheat it, I guess, by trying to get that little bit extra heat. Does that make sense, Jack?
Yeah, because so I was really worried. I didn't have the greenhouse this year. I had just my polytunnel. So I'd like polytunnel inception. I had a polytunnel within a polytunnel. And then once that like temperature like rised, you could see like the moisture from the trays was hitting the thing, and it was raining on the tomatoes. And I started to see like spots of potential early blight, and I nearly had a fit. But I sprayed them all, took all leaves off, and I was like, right, I'm not going to cover them again because I can't afford them to get moldy. So spores, you don't want that in the air. You just want it. You'd rather not go too humid with plants. I mean, it's like us sitting in a steam room, isn't it? To be honest.
Yeah.
We're going to sweat out, but also just for like soil-borne diseases, it's really just, you don't want to be having that. And just with microgreens, just want to keep them comfortable, because the fact I didn't know seeds created energy as they germinate, and then the fact that they're all like almost touching, it's incredible, isn't it? Like they're creating energy to like then grow, and it's fascinating, isn't it, on that micro level, what's happening. But it's made me understand seeds more. It's made me understand humidity more. And this is what I'm saying about the micro benefits of microgreens, like for health, but also for my growing knowledge. I'm thinking of like that, not the full plant. Like it's like maybe go back to how those seeds want to be looked after, and I think that's really quite key. It's quite key as well, and the fact that you're growing like incredible produce in 7 days, just like it's still.
And I love the fact that the learning curve is so short that you can correct, after 7 days, 5 days. Jack, I think there aren't, unless there's any more questions, I think this would be a good place to wrap this up.
Sure.
But again,
appreciate people staying on as well.
Yeah. And just as a little bit of housekeeping, just to let you know, guys, that in a couple of days, this will be available to watch back. Both me, Jack, and Chris were available in Discord. But if you've got any questions about microgreen growing, just message the guy on your screen, because genuinely, Jack's really helped me to kind of like have confidence and level up growing. I know we've got Google, we've got all the wisdom at our disposal, haven't we? But sometimes it's hard to know what question to ask to get that wisdom.
I think what we're trying to do with the academy, especially the community of the Discord, is having that personal touch. So you can ask directly to someone that does it a lot, to be like just to troubleshoot it for you, to get that direct question, or literally go, oh, Jack, here's my picture of my microgreens. What's wrong here? And then I can like, this is the ability that we have, is like now we're together in a group. It's so much easier. And like, I really want to start building that community more and more and more as we're going into the shoulder season. I've been off for like 10 days pretty much in away. But now I'm back. I'm like got fire in my belly to like teach and really look after our community and just make sure that we're adapted in all our ways, microgreens, mushrooms, and then as we look after our garden all the way into spring, so we can just like shoot off with a little bit of kind of give our garden the best heads up for next year so we can grow abundance together.
I just want to say again, on behalf of everybody in the watching the webinar live, but also everybody that's going to watch this back, Jack, thank you so much for your time and the work that's gone into this and your expertise and your energy as well. Because I'm actually inspired. Like I'm genuinely, I'm being serious. I'm going to, in addition to doing this challenge, I'm going to be getting some sprouty and broccoli, and growing it for this relative of mine. And this is really, really exciting,
Definitely,
guys.
man.
I think that this is a good place to end this evening's webinar. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your patience at the start of the webinar as well, and letting us know about this slight technical issue. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, we want to kind of wrap that up as much as possible so we have no technical issues. I mean, what we appreciate mostly is like you're joining this at the beginning of the journey of the academy. So we want to look after you guys the most as well, because you've like put your faith in us. So yeah, any issues, like we're all friends here, just let us know and we'll try and sort it. We're the technical idiots, but we've got Chris, that's the guy for that. And but we're learning, we're getting better. I mean, look at Andy's mic, he's got a new mic.
Well, and also, a bit of a shout out to Chris, because we are all part of a big community. As Jack said, we are all friends, and I think we'll all agree that Chris is having a very well deserved few days away with his partner and his newborn baby, and so I hope he's having a very nice time on whatever beach he's on. But regardless, aside from beaches, thank you so much. Joe, Ruth, Sarah, Amy, thank you for joining us live. And thank you to everybody watching this back. Thank you to Jack. And until next time, guys, I just hope you have a really, really lovely evening. And thank you so much for staying with us and for your enthusiasm and positive energy. Have a great evening, guys. See you later.
Ciao.